At this point in time, I'd like to call up Sarah Lucas, with the CEO of the Lake Superior Community Partnership, and Marty Fittante, CEO at InvestUP. What we want to do right now is take the opportunity to highlight some of the different projects around the UP through the economic development efforts of folks like this, and kind of make you aware of what's been happening. We don't always see all the news, right? And the impact that's making in some of the different communities around the UP. And so they've been kind enough to give us some of their time to highlight some of those opportunities that have come up, that have been able to be funded, and created some great opportunity for a variety of the communities around the UP. So Marty, I'll let you lead that. I know we're kind of tight on time, but take the time that you guys need to kind of outline a few of those different projects and some of the successes that we've been experiencing around the UP.
I probably don't need them. Thanks, Rich. Thanks for having us. I'm Marty Fittante, CEO of InvestUP. We're a regional economic development organization that looks to drive prosperity all across the Upper Peninsula's 15 counties. And we look to do that really in a few ways, but most importantly, it's as a partner to our local economic development organizations like Sarah Lucas and the Lake Superior Community Partnership. Excuse me. And I think one of the things that Sarah and I really wanted to focus on was the importance of local economic development and those local partners, because from our perspective, they're there to be a resource, we're there to be a resource for small business. And I think that's not always something that small business appreciates because they're so busy just doing the everyday work. I have a wife who's an accountant, has 7 on staff, and so I know from that perspective how difficult it is as a small business to necessarily look outside and what resources are there. And one of the things that I think there's a perception that there's a number of different economic development organizations that really are in competition for with what they do. And what I can tell you is there is no competition. There's a great partnership, and on a local level, organizations like the LSCP know what's going on within the community and can be that resource for you. And when they reach maybe a question or have an issue or there's a barrier that stands in their way, hopefully it's an organization like ours then that can help with opening a door or being a resource or being a partner with the assets and the scale that we can bring. So that's part of what I think we really want to talk about, as well as some of those successes. There is an awful lot to be excited about, I think, across the Upper Peninsula, but I think it really starts with what Sarah and her team are doing on the ground.
Okay, thank you, Marty. Can everyone hear me? Okay. So the Lake Superior Community Partnership, the LSCP, I think most of you are familiar with it. I'm the CEO. I'm almost exactly a year into my position as the CEO. The LSCP has been around for about 25 years, and we provide business support services, which is kind of a very general term, but what that really means is we are there for businesses with any number of needs that they might have. So we do everything from startup services. We've helped a lot of businesses, particularly over the last year, to some of Brian Kelly's points about the number of new businesses that we've seen crop up in Michigan. We've helped a lot of startups get up and running. We help provide access to capital. We work with the Marquette County Economic Development Corporation to provide access to low interest loans. We provide succession planning services. We provide marketing and promotional services. So there's really a very broad spectrum of services that are available to businesses just through our organization. But to Marty's point, we're really not we're not all-inclusive. There are other organizations that can meet needs, much more specific needs, within the economic development realm. So we work really closely with organizations like Accelerate UP and Innovate Marquette to make sure that they have the more granular types of information and resources that those technology or startup businesses might need. So we're really a very versatile organization, which I think is something that maybe isn't said enough. And it's one of those more intangible values that economic development organizations provide, is our ability to respond to different needs for specific businesses and for the community as a whole. An example is when COVID hit and everything was all in turmoil in terms of regulations, in terms of people's revenues and staffing. Our organization was able to walk businesses through some of the changes, was able to support them as they applied for some of those relief dollars, and so really kind of acted as a door to the resources that were available through the state and through other organizations. So just with the COVID relief funds, we helped nearly 200 businesses and provided access to over $500,000 in grants to those businesses. So that's one aspect of our work, but I think when we think about economic and business needs, there are a lot of other roles that we play in terms of bringing the community together to support our local economic issues. And I can talk a little bit more about that. I don't want to take up all the time here today, but really just kind of wanted to introduce LSCP and some of the basics of how we operate. But again, kind of going back to the range of services, we're there regardless of what a business needs.
And I think it's important to note that, there's an LSCP in most every community in the Upper Peninsula. So unfortunately, there are 2 counties in the Upper Peninsula that don't have any economic development resources. And I think that's a miss. And so one of the things that we've been having is conversations with state policymakers to say, how do you use some of those American Rescue Plan funding dollars to make sure that there are organizations like the LSCP in those 2 counties? And then there are 2 counties in the Upper Peninsula as well that only have part-time staff. And so you can hear from Sarah the value that an organization like the LSCP can provide locally. And let me give you an example of that. Sarah mentioned the relief grants. That's a great example. But we as an organization were entrusted from the state with $7.2 million. So working with our partners like the LSCP across the UP, we socialized that $7.2 million to 1,100 businesses at the height of COVID. And so that's the type of thing that we can do in partnership. But on a more private sector side, in terms of relationally, I saw Jeff Holt and Chris Olson here from Chippewa County and Sault Ste. Marie. Chris had an opportunity with a fabricator that was struggling over in the Sioux, wanted a door open to a big Department of Defense contractor down near Menominee County, had no relationship to do that. And so that's the type of connection that we can make. And within days, we were able to open that door to allow that fabricator to have a conversation with that Department of Defense manufacturer. So it's those types of things working in partnership that we're able to do on a local level for you, and why I think it's so important for small business to reach out to the LSCPs that are across the Upper Peninsula.
And I would maybe add to Marty's example about kind of the door opening activities. It's the kind of thing that I think is underappreciated about economic development organizations. I think that we're all kind of looking for the big win, like the GM announcement last month, or the big loss like Ford in the fall. I think the economic development conversation has really focused on those big companies relocating in our communities. But economic development is really a much longer game than that, and I think the successes are sometimes less tangible. It really takes a lot of partners on the ground to make sure that the businesses that are here have the support that they need to expand, and that the communities themselves are ready to support new business or existing businesses that's looking to grow. And that really takes capacity, which is, again, a very kind of nebulous term, and I think probably doesn't really get people very excited. No one really gets excited about capacity until you realize that you need it and you don't have it. And that's what happened in some of the communities in Michigan during COVID that didn't have economic development organizations. They really felt that lack very acutely. So having an organization like the LSCP or the other economic development organizations that we have in the UP is more valuable, I think, than the community often realizes, because we have an organization that is focused solely on the economic sustainability and prosperity of our region. And in my experience with the economy or with any other topic, if it's not someone's job, it's often not going to get done, or not going to get done to the extent that we want it to. So it's really important to have that focus organizationally. And kind of beyond that, again, going back to the number of partners who need to be engaged in economic development in a community, it also is really important to have an organization like the LSCP to bring them together around that focus. So it's easy to count jobs as a measure of success in economic development, but it's definitely not the only thing that we should be paying attention to.
So, quick question.
Thank you.
As a business owner, my head's down, working my business and in my business, all that kind of stuff on a regular basis. I don't necessarily see or understand the value that some of these economic development groups have and how they can affect my business. And I think for a lot of small business owners, we run into that same thing. We get that annoying phone call to join a membership or do something like that. But we're not really necessarily understanding the true value that those kinds of things are bringing in. And so how do we go about better leveraging those resources as a business owner? And what are some of the key flags as a business owner that would tell me I need to pick up the phone, I need to call Sarah, I need to call Marty, I need to call Lois. There's a variety of different EDO groups around the UP, but what tells me it's time for me to leverage that resource?
I think if there's a question, it's time to leverage it's time to leverage the resource. And I say that because I mentioned earlier we work on any part of the spectrum, from startups up to succession planning. And so if you're thinking about starting a business and you have questions about that process, most people do, the LSCP can help walk you through that process. If you're looking at expansion, that's another time that it's really important to have some additional resources and information about what your next steps might be. And if you're thinking about exiting or retiring or selling the business, that's another great time to think about calling our business development staff. In the meantime, again, we provide marketing and promotional support, and so even if you're not in a change phase of your business, you're still able to take advantage of our resources in terms of building up your customer recognition, or just kind of getting your name out there, connecting with other businesses, networking, joining some of the community initiatives that we're a part of. So there's always a time, and we're always available to help.
I completely agree with that, Rich, and I think it's important to know that invariably there's no cost to these charges, or there's no cost to these services. And so it comes by virtue of support that organizations like the LSCP are getting from you, or like organizations like us are getting from UPCO and Michigan Works. And so if there is a question, you have a concern, or there's a barrier, that is the time to reach out. So maybe you've been to a bank and you're struggling to get some capital that you need. Come back to the LSCP, come back to Invest, because maybe we have a relationship that can open a door, take a look at it a bit differently. Maybe it's going over to Northern Initiatives and doing what they do really well. So if you're a startup that, you have a great idea, but you don't have the blueprint and a business plan, maybe that's back to Northern Initiatives and them helping you with the business plan, or the SBDC helping you put those basics together, getting in front of the Smart Zone and what they're doing with entrepreneurs and innovators. Maybe it's a barrier that the state's got in the way, right? Allowing us to open a door to policymakers to say, why is that? Why can't we make that change that maybe is not just endemic to that particular business, but it's really something that is impacting business all across the Upper Peninsula. So I completely agree with where Sarah's at in terms of, if you got a question, if there's an obstacle, that's the time to reach out.
So the EDO is a good place to reach out to get started. They can point you in the right direction, or they can provide services to help, right? Any questions? I know we've got some other EDO representatives from around the UP. I know, Marty, you're involved in some coordination stuff with a number of them across the UP, but if you want to mention some of the other the folks. I know Lois Ellis is here from Dickinson.
Yeah, I walked in late, so I apologize. I haven't gotten a chance to see who's around the room. I saw Chris earlier. But we are really blessed to have people like Lois, like Chris, like Jeff Holt, that they're really sincere and looking to help. And at the end of the day, they're motivated to do what's right for their communities, right? I think at the end of the day, that's what brings Sarah and I satisfaction in the jobs that we do is your communities are our communities. And so we're looking to make a difference in those communities, and we're tasked through our job to do just that. So we're truly blessed, and I think you saw that through COVID, that you had a community of economic development organizations that came together really quickly and talked about what can we do to triage the real needs that small businesses have.
Anybody have any questions? Well, let me thank you guys. I appreciate it. I know we've been on a variety of different calls and trying to put this together. I'm blessed in being part of the Small Business Association of Michigan as well. And believe me, there's a lot of resources out there for us as business owners that we can leverage. The key is we have to pick up the phone and call, and we have to exercise. So there's not a question that you can't ask, that you can't bring to these folks and get some help. That's what they're there for. That's what drives their every day. So that's going to kind of conclude where we're at in the first half. Brett, do you have anything you feel you need to add? I'm going to thank you guys. Appreciate it. Can you guys give these guys a round of applause? Thank you.